It's that time again. Top 10 Tuesday. Every month, the first Tuesday of the month, I do a new top 10. And this time I'm doing my top 10 favorite single issue comics of all time. I'm going to get right into it. First, the rules. Now, on this one, a very particular set of rules is that I'm only choosing from comics that I still own in single format. So that greatly limits my choices because I have, probably around 2,500. Now, that may shock you that I don't have the exact number, but that's because I keep all of these in the same database, so these are counted. So if you count all my singles and all my collected editions, I have just a hair over 3,000 books right now. But I don't have the breakdown easily of which ones are singles, but I got a pretty good idea. It's somewhere around maybe 2,000 issues or less. So the criteria was favorite single issue comics, comics that I look back at in that single format and have great memories of and hold it to a high level for me, to the point where I will never get rid of those comic books. And I've went through and I've tried to pick 10 of them that are most near and dear to me, and I even attempted to put them in order. Now, when you've been reading comic books as long as me for over 40 years, you forget some things. You forget anything in 40 years, but some things you never forget. And we're going to talk about 10 of those right now. We're going to get right into it. At number 10, it's Conan issue 100. Now, this is the original Marvel series of Conan. The art inside here and on the cover is by Big John Buscema and Aaron E. Chan doing inks. And of course, this is written by Roy Thomas. For me, the greatest comic book Conan, Robert E. Howard property writer there ever was and likely ever will be. We'll see. But anyway, he is adapting here. The team is finishing. This is the conclusion for their adaptation of Robert E. Howard's Queen of the Black Coast. And I remember this story was powerful and it's tragic. And no spoiler here, it's right on the cover, but this is the death of Baylit, Conan's pirate queen, and the love of his life for a long time before he met who would become the Queen of Aquilonia later. But I won't get into all that because I could wax on forever about Conan and the history of that character and that world, but maybe in another video. At number 9, I've got Moon Knight number 12. Now, this is the original Moon Knight series written by the great Doug Moench with just fabulous art and inks by Bill Sienkiewicz. This cover is by Frank Miller and Al Milgrom, which is also pretty special. Now, this one, Moon Knight fights this horrifying villain named Morpheus. One of the greatest villain character designs I think I've ever seen. Just creepy to the max. Sort of reminiscent of the silent Nosferatu vampire film, if anyone's seen that. Maybe I'll try to get a screenshot of that so you can see what I'm talking about. But I remember being creeped out by this and loving every minute of it. And so that's why it's number 9 on my list. At number 8, I've got Micronauts issue number 7. Now, this one, the cover here I'm showing here is by Michael Golden with inks by Al Milgrom. And it is autographed by Michael Golden, thanks to the Comic Slayer, my daughter. She got that autograph for me because I don't go anywhere, but she goes to cons. And I try to get her to, I give her a big list. And if she just gets a couple of them, I'm happy about it, So she did come through here, and that is Michael Golden's signature on that cover. This is one of my favorites. I remember buying this one off of the newsstand, or rather at my local comic shop when it came out. I'm pretty sure, yeah. And I love the Bantha character. And in this one, the Micronauts, they run into Bantha in the swamps of Florida, and they help a little boy. And it's just great. It's a delightful story, and just this beautiful Michael Golden art in there. So that's number 8. At number 7, I've got Thor issue 300. Now, this is the original numbering for the Thor comic book. And I did buy this one off the stands. I remember that. This was in 1980. This was a big square-bound anniversary issue to celebrate the 300th issue. And I hate those square-bound comics, but I love this one. So it does have that square binding, so you lose a lot in the gutter. And it's very difficult to scan these comic books. I mean, if you want to keep them in good condition anyway. I mean, I could take a razor knife and cut the pages out, and then I can scan it. But barring that, it's difficult to get great scans from these square-bound comic books. But I did my best here, and I got a couple. But yeah, this one has everything. It's written by Mark Grunewald and Ralph Macchio together. And the art is by the criminally underrated Keith Pollard. I don't see enough of his art, but man, everything I seen Keith Pollard do, he did some Marvel 2-in-1s back in the day, and he did a lot of Thor in this era, and it was fantastic. And the inks up here are by Gene Day. And I remember this particular page, this upper panel I'll put right here. When I was a little kid, well, again, 1980, I remember poring over that panel, and I used to try to draw, and I would copy from the art in the comic book. And I did it rather large. I wish I had it. I would show a scan of it, but that is one that got lost to the ages, unfortunately. But I blew that up, just by hand, by looking at it and copying. And I tried to replicate that panel, the Thor flying, that dynamic pose. And yeah, just great stuff. And this issue does have everything. It's got Celestials, this host of Celestials judging mankind. So it's got all that great Kirby creations there. It has the Destroyer armor, Odin's magical, crazy tank-like armor. That thing is featured in here, and it's just tremendous. It's awesome. I remember all of these storylines culminating in this 300th issue, and yeah, it was fantastic. I remember this fabulous art and doing my best to replicate it. Of course, I couldn't do it. I wasn't a Keith Pollard, but yeah, I really love this one, and I will never forget this cover and this issue. So at number 6, I've got House of M number 3, issue 3. And doing this top 10 and getting the materials ready and the scans, it reminded me of how much I did love House of M, just the whole event in general. And it's making me rethink my decision not to buy the recent omnibus. So I may have to get it anyway, because while I have all the singles and I love them, I would love to see the art. I'm going to feature right here in these scans in that larger size of the omnibus, so I may have to pick it up. But at any rate, so this came out in 2005. This cover is by Esad Ribic right here, but the interior art is by Olivier Coipel. And man, I love his artwork. He is just tremendous. And of course, this is written by Brian Michael Bendis. He did the whole series. Tim Townsend does the inks here over Olivier Coipel, and it is just beautiful. I mean, look at this line work. Gorgeous stuff. My copy here, I did get autographed by Brian Michael Bendis, and I got that one myself. So that's what's on the cover here. I was also lucky enough to write the Atomic Avenue comic base blurb entry for this series. I'll put a screenshot here if you want to look at that, and I'll put a link down below if you guys want to see that. You might, I don't know. But yeah, this one is so awesome. So much action, such a great story. I don't usually get into the big crossover events. I mean, I do reluctantly usually, but this one was a gem. It really was. If you haven't read it, you should pick up that omnibus. But at any rate, the scans I've chosen here are the point where Wolverine starts to remember his past life. It all starts coming back to him. The stuff that the Scarlet Witch took away, with her no more mutants thing. And it all starts coming back to him, and he's on the helicarrier, and he jumps off the side of the rail. And it's so great. It's a 2-page, spread. So it's going to cover my face here in a minute, but it's worth it. Look at this. Is that fantastic? And I'm not even going to show some scans that happen later, because I don't want to give the whole thing away, but he rides a motorcycle in his escape from this hell world, and it's great stuff. And that's why it's number 6 in my all-time favorite single-issue comic books. Now, at number 5, I have Uncanny X-Men 141. It's from 1980. This is the Dream Team. Chris Claremont, John Byrne on pencils, and Terry Austin on inks. Doesn't get any better than this. This is Days of Future Past. And like most of my favorite X-Men books, this is very Kitty Pryde-centric. Just love it. As a 12-year-old, I was in love with Kitty Pryde, and I wasn't the only one. A lot of guys were, a lot of people were in general. I mean, great character and the best era of X-Men, in my opinion. And I'm not alone in that. At number 4, I've got Uncanny X-Men 139, also from 1980. Same Dream Team, another Kitty Pryde centric issue. This one is their first appearance ever in the X-Men, well, in comic books, and it's a great one. At number 3 on my countdown, I've got Marvel Premiere issue 46 from 1978. Now, this is the second part of the Star God saga, featuring Man-Wolf. Now, if you don't know, Man-Wolf is John Jameson, J. Jonah Jameson's son, and he was a soldier, an astronaut, and this gem got grafted to his throat, this mystical gem, and it turns him into this Man-Wolf. And I tell you, the character design on this, whoever came up with it, I should have looked into who that was. It might have been George Perez, who does the art in this tremendously beautiful art. But the character design is really something. This white werewolf, essentially, and he's wielding a sword. He's helping out this mystical land. He's got to save this princess. It's just it's the stuff of dreams right here. If you like monsters and fantasy, this has it all. And this is the second part of it, but it's my favorite. It was written by David Anthony Kraft, and the art is by George Perez, inked by Ricardo Villamonte. And it is so nice. I mean, look at this. This is pretty early George Perez, and it's already great. This cover, the cover I showed a while ago, it's inked by Terry Austin, George Perez and Terry Austin, another dream team right there. But at any rate, this is early George Perez, and he was already great. The man was great from the beginning to the end, and his art will live on forever. I mean, look at this. Look at this 2-page spread here. Look at this panel that goes across. Is that gorgeous? I mean, this is the height of comic art, in my humble opinion. I mean, look at this. I don't know what more to say, but I will never forget it. Especially, I remember a little kid reading this, and it just blew me away, and I will never forget it, and I'll never sell this issue. Now, I would welcome a gallery edition, blowing this gorgeous art up even larger. Man, that would be right up my alley, and I would buy that for sure. But that is number 3. Now, at number 2, I have another book that I have talked about many times in other lists for different reasons, but this is Cull issue 11. Another Robert E. Howard character. And this one is, again, Roy Thomas writing and adapting from a Robert E. Howard story, which was the By This Axe I Rule, short story by Robert E. Howard. And this is one of my all-time favorite sword and sorcery stories. And this one is illustrated by Mike Ploog. Just a great artist. I had to go back and get a prop. Now, I love the art of this, and this is one of my all-time favorite stories. And I love Mike Ploog's sword and sorcery stuff, despite him doing one of the cardinal sins as far as I'm concerned. But I love his art so much, I forgive him for this, and that is he draws these going the wrong direction sometimes. Now, if you're holding a sword in the proper way, the edge, aligned in your hand like this, if these are pointed downward, it doesn't really interfere too much here. But imagine if this is pointed downward. You're gonna stab yourself with the guard. It's gonna hurt. But I don't want to spend too much time on that. But as you can see, a lot of artists do that in comic books. I'm not sure why. Usually it's when the sword is depicted the other direction. They forget to turn those with the blade, and so they go. Anyway, it's one of my weapon hang-ups, but he does that several times, and I forgive him anyway because look how gorgeous this art is. Look at it. The story is about King Cull and everyone betraying him, basically. Everybody around him, his elite guard, who he had trusted as his advisors and things, they all decide to try to usurp his crown, and they gang up and start attacking him. And it is so incredible. He is just, they're coming at him and he's just killing them. He's taking on masses of soldiers, and he's just piling up the bodies. And toward the end of this issue, they're all piled up, and he's standing here. I'll show you the scan with this huge battle axe. And he's like, "Who dies first?" Because he's already taken out most of them. There's just a handful of guards left, and he's like, "Who dies first?" Some of them just, I'm sure, turn around and run, seeing this huge barbarian standing on this pile of bodies, essentially, dripping huge black battle axe, and he's like, "Who dies first? You got more?" Yeah. I will never forget that, and I love it. The cover here by Mike Ploog. Here's the original, And now here's the omnibus with the same cover, but recolored with modern art, with modern coloring technique. Look how much punchier that is. Now, which do you prefer? The original or the recolored? In this case, I like the recolored better. I like both a lot. But look at that. Now look at them side by side. Which is better? Come on. Now, I know not all recoloring is as good as this one, but to me, I think the new one is better, although I love both. But that's number 2 in my countdown. Now, my number 1 favorite single-issue comic of all time is Uncanny X-Men 143 from 1980. This cover here is by Terry Austin, doing the pencils and the inks. And the rest of the team is the same as the other Uncannys I featured in this list. Chris Claremont writing, John Byrne doing the pencils, and Terry Austin inking. And in this one, Kitty Pryde fights this demon alone. It's a Christmas issue. Everybody's out of the mansion but her. And this demon, this elder god, gets in there and goes after her. It's very much like the alien xenomorph a little bit, but this is an actual mystical demon, in the story. And she has to face this on her own. And it is awesome. It's a real cat and mouse game throughout the whole story. And she finally takes care of it. She uses her smarts and she traps this thing and destroys it. Anyway, it's really good. It's very intense and more of that great Kitty Pryde storylines that I love. And that is my number 1 favorite comic book single issue of all time. And I don't think this one will change. I say that these lists are fluid, but I don't think anything can knock this one from the number 1 position for me. So that's my top 10 for now. And I got plenty more in my library, in my archives. If you want to check that out, here's a playlist. Top, you want to see the other top 10s. And if you want to keep watching the channel, that'd be great. Hit the subscribe button and bell notify yourself so you don't miss out. I have hauls and unboxings just sporadically as well, and a new review every Monday. And I will see you in the next one.